the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Sabha Parva. Section 6, Lokpala Sabha Parva continued. Vasampayana said, at the conclusion of Narada's words, King Yudhishthira the just worshipped him duly, and commanded by him the monarch began to reply succinctly to the questions the Riyahi had asked. Yudhishthira said, O Holy One, the truths of religion and morality thou hast indicated one after another, are just and proper. As regards myself, I duly observe those ordinances to the best of my power. Indeed, the acts that were properly performed by monarchs of yore are, without doubt, to be regarded as bearing proper fruit, and undertaken from solid reasons for the attainment of proper objects. O Master, we desire to walk in the virtuous path of those rulers that had, besides, their souls under complete control. Vasampayana continued, Yudhishthira, the son of Pandu, possessed of great glory, having received with reverence the words of Narada and having also answered the Rishi thus, reflected for a moment, and perceiving a proper opportunity, the monarch, seated beside the Rishi, asked Narada sitting at his ease and capable of going into every world at will, in the presence of that assembly of kings, saying, possessed of the speed of mind, thou wanderest over various and many worlds created in days of yore by Brahma, beholding everything. Tell me, I ask thee, if thou hast, O Brahmana, ever beheld before anywhere an assembly room like this of mine or superior to it? Hearing these words of Yudhishthira the just, Narada smilingly answered the son of Pandu in these sweet accents. Narada said, O child, O king, I did neither see nor hear of ever before amongst men, any assembly room built of gems and precious stones like this of thine, O Bharata. I shall, however, describe unto thee the rooms of the king of the departed, Yam, of Varuna, Neptune, of great intelligence, of Indra, the king of gods, and also of him who hath his home in Kailasha, Kuvara. I shall also describe unto thee the celestial Sabha of Brahma that dispelleth every kind of uneasiness. All these assembly rooms exhibit in their structure both celestial and human designs and present every kind of form that exists in the universe. And they are ever worshipped by the gods and the Pitriya, the Sadhyas, under deities called Gan, by ascetics offering sacrifices, with souls under complete command, by peaceful munis engaged without intimation in Vedic sacrifices with presents to Brahmanas. I shall describe all these to you if, O bull of the Bharata race, thou hast any inclinations to listen to me. Vasampayana continued, thus addressed by Narada, the high-soiled king Yudhishthira the just, with his brothers and all those foremost of Brahmanas, seated around him, joined his hands, in entreaty. And the monarch then asked Narada, saying, describe unto us all those assembly rooms. We desire to listen to thee. O Brahmana, what are the articles with which each of the sabhas are made of? What is the area of each, and what is the length and breadth of each? Who wait upon the grandsire in that assembly room? And who also upon Vasva, the lord of the celestials, and upon Yam, the son of Vivaswana? Who wait upon Varuna and upon Kuvara in their respective assembly rooms? O Brahmana Riyahi, tell us all about these. We all together desire to hear thee describe them. Indeed, our curiosity is great. Thus addressed by the son of Pandu, Narada replied saying, O monarch, hear ye all about those celestial assembly rooms one after another. Thus ended the sixth section in the Lokpala Parva of the Sabha Parva. Section 7, Lokpala Parva continued. Narada said, "The celestial assembly room of Sakra is full of luster. He hath obtained it as the fruit of his own acts. Possessed of the splendor of the sun, it was built, O scion of the Kuru race, by Sakra himself. Capable of going everywhere at will, this celestial assembly house is full 150 yojanas in length, and 100 yojanas in breadth, and 5 yojanas in height. Dispelling weakness of age, grief, fatigue, and fear, auspicious and bestowing good fortune, furnished with rooms and seats and adorned with celestial trees, it is delightful in the extreme. There sitteth in that assembly room, O son of Pritha, on an excellent seat, the Lord of Celestials, with his wife Sachi endowed with beauty and affluence. Assuming a form incapable of description for its vagueness, with a crown on his head and bright bracelets on the upper arms, attired in robes of pure white and decked with floral wreaths of many hues, there he sitteth with beauty, fame, and glory by his side. And the illustrious deity of 100 sacrifices is daily waited upon, O monarch, in that assembly, by the Mangyutas in a body, each leading the life of a householder in the bosom of his family. And the Siddhyas, celestial rishis, the Sadhyas in all, the gods, and Mangyutas of brilliant complexion and adorned with golden garlands, all of them in celestial form and decked in ornaments, always wait upon and worship the illustrious chief of the immortals, that mighty represser of all foes. And O son of Pritha, the celestial rishis also, all of pure souls, with sins completely washed off and resplendent as the fire, and possessed of energy, and without sorrow of any kind, and freed from the fever of anxiety, and all performers of the Soma sacrifice, also wait upon and worship Indra, and Parasra and Parvata and Savarni and Galava and Sankha, and the Muni Garzairas, and Durvasa, and Krodna and Swena, and the Munighyagatamas, and Pavitrapani, Savarni, Yajnavalkya and Bhaluki, and Udilaka, Svetketu, and Tandya, and also Bhandayani, and Havishmat, and Garishta, and King Harishchandra, and Hiridya, Udashandilya, Parasya, Krishivala, Vatskanda, Visakha, Vidhatas, and Kala, Karaladanta, Testri, and Vishwakarman, and Tumuru, and other rishis, some born of women and others living upon air, and others again living upon fire, these all worship Indra, the wielder of the thunderbolt, the lord of all the worlds. And Sahdeva, and Sunita, and Valmiki of great ascetic merit, and Samika of truthful speech, and Prachetas ever fulfilling their promises, and Meltithi, and Vamdeva, and Pulastya, Pulaha and Kratu, and Manruta and Marichi, and Sthanu of great ascetic merit, and Kakshivat, and Goitama, and Takya, and also the Muni Vashwanara, and the Muni Kalakavrikya and Ashravya, and also Hiranmal, and Samvarta, and Dehavya, and Visvaksena of great energy, and Kanva, and Katyayan, O king, and Gagya, and Koishika, all are present there along with the celestial waters and plants, and faith, and intelligence, and the goddess of learning, and wealth religion, and pleasure, and lightning, O son of Pandu, and the rain-charged clouds, and the winds, and all the loud-sounding forces of heaven, Tni eastern point, the 27 fires conveying the sacrificial butter, Agni and Soma, and the fire of Indra, and Mitra, and Savitri, and Ayaman. Bhaga, Vishwas the Sadhyas, the preceptor, Vrihaspati, and also Sukra, and Vishwavasu and Chitrasenai and Sumnas, up to also Taruna, the sacrifices, the gifts to Brahmanas, the planets, and the stars, O Bharata, and the mantras that are uttered in sacrifices, all these are present there. And, O king, many apasaras and gandharvas by various kinds of dances and music, both instrumental and vocal, and by the practice of auspicious rites, and by the exhibition of many feats of skill, gratify the Lord of the Celestials Satakratu, the illustrious slayer of Vala and Vritra. Besides these, many other Brahmanas and royal and celestial rishis, all resplendent as the fire, decked in floral wreaths and ornaments, frequently come to and leave that assembly, riding on celestial cars of various kinds. And Vrihaspati and Sukra are present there on all occasion. These and many other illustrious ascetics of rigid vows, and Bhrigu and the 7 Bishis who are equal, O king, unto Brahma himself, come to and leave that assembly house, riding on cars beautiful as the car of Soma, and themselves looking as bright therein as Soma himself. This, O mighty armed monarch, is the assembly house, called Pushkaramalini, of Indra of 100 sacrifices that I have seen. Listen now to the account of Yam's assembly house. Thus ended the 7th section in the Lokpala Sabhakyana Parva of the Sabha Parva. Section 8, Lokpala Sabhakyana Parva continued. Narada said, O Yudhishthira, I shall now describe the assembly house of Yara, the son of Vivaswat, which, O son of Pritha, was built by Viswakarma. Listen now to me. Bright as burnished gold, that assembly house, O monarch, covers an area of much more than 100 yojanas. Possessed of the splendor of the sun, it yieldeth everything that one may desire. Neither very cool nor very hot, it delighteth the heart. In that assembly house there is neither grief nor weakness of age, neither hunger nor thirst. Nothing disagreeable findeth a place there, nor any kind of evil feelings there. Every object of desire, celestial or human, is to be found in that mansion. And all kinds of enjoyable articles, as also of sweet, juicy, agreeable, and delicious edibles in profusion that are licked, sucked, and drunk, are there, O chastiser of all enemies. The floral wreaths in that mansion are of the most delicious fragrance, and the trees that stand around it yield fruits that are desired of them. There are both cold and hot waters, and these are sweet and agreeable. In that mansion many royal sages of great sanctity and Brahmana sages also of great purity, cheerfully wait upon, O child, and worship Yam, the son of Vivaswat. And Yayati, Nahusha, Puru, Mandatri, Somaka, Nriga, the royal sage Trasatsu, Kritavirya, Sotasvas, Arishtanemi, Siddha, Kritaviga, Kriti, Nimi, Prathardana, Sivi, Matsya, Pritulaksha, Vrihadratha, Varta, Maruta, Kusika, Sankasya, Sankriti, Dhruva, Chaturasv, Sadaswami and King Kartavirya, Bharata and Surtha, Sunita, Naizatha, Nala, Devotsa and Sumnas, Amvarish, Bhagiratha, Vyasv, Vadrasv, Prituvega, Prithusravas, Parishdasv, Vasumnas, Kshupa, and Sumamhavla, Vrishadgu, and Vrishsena, Purukutsa, Dvajin and Rathin, Ashatisna, Dwailipa, and the high-souled Ashinara, Ozinari, Pundarika, Saryati, Sarava, and Suchi, Anga, Rishta, Vena, Dushmanta, Shrinjaya and Jaya, Bangasuri, Sunita, and Nishta, and Bahinara, Karandama, Valhika, Sudimna, and the mighty Madhu, Ela and the mighty king of earth Manruta, Kapota, Trinaka, and Shedeva, and Arjuna also. Visava, Sasv and Krishasv, and King Sasavindu, Rama the son of Dasharatha, and Lakshmana, and Pratyardhana, Alaka, and Kakshsena, Gaya, and Gorazv, Rama the son of Jamdagnya, Nabhaga, and Sagra, Gurudyumna and Mahasv, Prithasv, and also Janka, King Venya, Varesena, Purujit, and Janamejaya, Brahmadatta, and Trigata, and King Uparikra also, Indradyumna, Bhimajanu, Goraprishta, Nala, Gaya, Padma and Machukunda, Gurudyumna, Prasenajit, Aristanemi, Sudimna, Prithuloisv, and Ashtaka also, 100 kings of the Matsya race and 100 of the Veep and 100 of the Haya races, 100 kings of the name of Dhritarashtra, 80 kings of the name of Janamejaya, 100 monarchs called Brahmadatta, and 100 kings of the name of Iri, more than 200 Bhishmas, and also 100 Bhimas, 100 Prativindhyas, 100 Nagas, and 100 Palsa, and 100 called Kasa and Kusa. That king of kings Santanu, and thy father Pandu, Usangava, Sataratha, Devraja, Jayadratha, the intelligent royal sage Vrishta with his ministers, and 1,000 other kings known by the name of Sasavindu and who have died, having performed many grand horse sacrifices with large presents to the Brahmanas. These holy royal sages of grand achievements and great knowledge of the Sastras, wait upon, O king, and worship the son of Vivaswat in that assembly house. And Agastya and Matanga, and Kala, and Mrityu, death, performers of sacrifices, the Siddhas, and many yogins, the Pitris, belonging to the classes called Agniswatas, Phenapa, Ushmapa, Swadvat, and Varishta, as also those others that have forms, the wheel of time, and the illustrious conveyor himself of the sacrificial butter, all sinners among human beings, as also those that have died during the winter solstice, these officers of Yam who have been appointed to count the allotted days, of everybody and everything, the Singasapa, Palsa, Kasa and Kusa trees and plants, in their embodied forms these all, O king, wait upon and worship the God of justice in that assembly house of his. These and many others are present at the Sabha of the king of the Pitris, Mains. So numerous are they that I am incapable of describing them either by mentioning their names or deeds. O son of Pritha, the delightful assembly house, moving everywhere at the will of its owner, is of wide extent. It was built by Viswakarma after a long course of ascetic penances. And, O Bharata, resplendent with his own effulgence, it stands glorified in all its beauty. Sannyasis of severe ascetic penance, of excellent vows, and of truthful speech peaceful and pure and sanctified by holy deeds of shining bodies and attired in spotless robes, decked with bracelets and floral garlands with earrings of burnished gold, and adorned with their own holy acts as with the marks of their order, painted over their bodies, constantly visit that Sabha, assembly. Many illustrious Gandharvas, and many Apsaras fill every part of that mansion with music both instrumental and vocal and with sounds of laughter and dance. And, O son of Pritha, excellent perfumes, and sweet sounds and garlands of celestial flowers always contribute towards making that mansion supremely blessed. And hundreds of thousands of virtuous persons, of celestial beauty and great wisdom, always wait upon and worship the illustrious Yam, the Lord of created beings in that assembly house. Such, O monarch, is the Sabha of the illustrious king of the Pitris. I shall now describe unto the assembly house of Varuna also called Pushkamalini. Thus ended the 8th section in the Lokpala Parva of Sabha Parva. Section 9, Lokpala Parva continued. Narada said, O Yudhishthira, the celestial Sabha of Varuna is unparalleled in splendor. In dimensions it is similar to that of Yam. Its walls and arches are all of pure white. It hath been built by Viswakarma, the celestial architect, within the waters. It is surrounded on all sides by many celestial trees made of gems and jewels and yielding excellent fruits and flowers. And many plants with their weight of blossoms, blue and yellow, and black and darkish, and white and red, that stand there, or excellent bowers around. Within those bowers hundreds and thousands of birds of diverse species, beautiful and variegated, always pour forth their melodies. The atmosphere of that mansion is extremely delightful, neither cold nor hot. Owned by Varuna, that delightful assembly house of pure white consists of many rooms and is furnished with many seats. There sitteth Varuna attired in celestial robe, decked in celestial ornaments and jewels, with his queen, adorned with celestial scents and besmeared with paste of celestial fragrance. The Adityas wait upon and worship the illustrious Varuna, that the Lord of the waters. And Vasuki and Takshaka, and the Naga called Airavana, Krishna and Lohita, Padma and Chitra endued with great energy, the Nagas called Kamvala and Ashwatara, and Dhritarashtra and Valahaka, Madaimat and Kundadra and Kakotka and Dhananjaya, Panimat and the mighty Kundaka, O Lord of the earth, and Prahlad and Mashikada, and Janamejaya, all having auspicious marks and mandates and extended hoods, these and many other snakes. O Yudhishthira, without anxiety of any kind, wait upon and worship the illustrious Varuna. And, O King, Vali the son of Virochana, and Nirka the subjugator of the whole earth, Sangarda and Viprachiti, and those Danvas called Kalakanja, and Suhanu and Durmukha and Sankha and Sumnas and also Sumti, and Gatodra and Mahaparusva, and Karthana and also Pitara and Viswarupa, Swarupa and Virupa, Mahasiras, and Dasagriva, Vali, and Megvasas and Daswara, Titiva, and Vaitabhuta, and Sangarda, and Indratapna, these Daityas and Danvas, all bedecked with earrings and floral wreaths and crowns, and attired in the celestial robes, all blessed with boons and possessed of great bravery, and enjoying immortality, and all well of conduct and of excellent vows, wait upon and worship in that mansion, the illustrious Varuna, the deity bearing the news as his weapon. And, O King, there are also the 4 oceans, the river Bhagirathi, the Kalindi, the Vidaisa, the Vanva, the Nirmada of rapid current, the Vipasa, the Satadu, the Chandrabhaga, the Saraswati, the Iravati, the Vitasta, the Sindhu, the Devnadi, the Godavari, the Krishnavanva, and that queen of rivers the Kaveri, the Kimpuna, the Visalya and the river Vatarni also, the Tritiya, the Jeshtila, and the great Son, the Chamanvati and the great river Panasa, the Sarayu, the Varvatya, and that queen of rivers the Langali, the Karetoya, the Atreyi, the red Mahanada, the Laganti, the Gomti, the Sandhya, and also the Trisirotasi, these and other rivers which are all sacred and are world-renowned places of pilgrimage, as also other rivers and sacred waters and lakes and wells and springs, and tanks, large or small, in their personified form, O Bharata, wait upon and worship the Lord Varuna. The points of the heavens, the earth, and all the mountains, as also every species of aquatic animals, all worship Varuna there. And various tribes of Gandharvas and Apsaras, devoted to music, both vocal and instrumental, wait upon Varuna, singing eulogistic hymns unto him. And all those mountains that are noted for being both delightful and rich in jewels, wait, in their personified forms, in that Sabha, enjoying sweet converse with one another. And the chief minister of Varuna, Sunba by name, surrounded by his sons and grandsons, also attend upon his master, along with the personified form of a sacred water called Go. These all, in their personified forms, worship the deity. O bull of the Bharata race, such is the assembly room of Varuna seen by me before, in the course of my wanderings. Listen now to the account I give of the assembly room of Kuvara. Thus ends the 9th section in the Lokpala Parva of the Sabha Parva. Section 10, Lokpala Parva continued. Narada said, possessed of great splendor, the assembly house of Vaisravana, O king, is 100 yojanas in length and 70 yojanas in breadth. It was built, O king, by Vaisravana himself using his ascetic power, possessing the splendor of the peaks of Kailas. That mansion eclipses by its own the brilliance of the moon himself. Supported by Guhayakas, that mansion seems to be attached to the firmament. Of celestial make, it is rendered extremely handsome with high chambers of gold. Extremely delightful and rendered fragrant with celestial perfumes, it is variegated with numberless costly jewels. Resembling the peaks of a mass of white clouds, it seems to be floating in the air. Painted with colors of celestial gold, it seems to be decked with streaks of lightning. Within that mansion sitteth on an excellent seat bright as the sun and covered with celestial carpets and furnished with a handsome footstool, King Vaisravana of agreeable person, attired in excellent robes and adorned with costly ornaments and earrings of great brilliance, surrounded by his 1,000 wives. Delicious and cooling breezes murmuring through forests of tall mandaras, and bearing fragrance of extensive plantations of jasmine, as also of the lotuses on the bosom of the river Alka and of the Nandana gardens, always minister to the pleasure of the king of the Yakshas. There the deities with the Gandharvas surrounded by various tribes of Apsaras, sing in chorus, O king, notes of celestial sweetness. Miss Rekshi and Ramba, and Chitrasena, and Suchismita, and Charunetra, and Gritachi and Menka, and Punjikasthala, and Viswachi Sahjanya, and Pramlocha and Urvasi and Ira, and Vaga and Sovai, and Samichi, and Vududa, and Lata these and 1,000 other Apsaras and Gandhavat, all well skilled in music and dance, attend upon Kuvara, the lord of treasures. And that mansion, always filled with the notes of instrumental and vocal music, as also with the sounds of dance of various tribes of Gandharvas, and Apsaras hath become extremely charming and delicious. The Gandharvas called Kinnaras, and others called Naras, and Manibhadra, and Dhanada, and Svetbhadra and Guhayaka, Kaseka, Gantakindu, and the mighty Pradyota, Kustumbaru, Pisacha, Gajkarn, and Visalaka Varakarna, Tamraushta, Fokaksha, and Palodaka, Hansachuda, Sikavarta, Vibhishna, Pushpanana, Pingalaka, Sonituda and Pravlaka, Vrikshvaspaniketa, and Chiravasas these O Bharata, and many other yakshas by hundred and thousands always wait upon Kuvara, the goddess Lakshmi always stayed there, also Kuvara's son Nalkuvara. Myself and many others like myself often repair thither. Many Brahmana rishis and celestial rishis also repair there often. Many Rakshasas, and many Gandharvas besides those that have been named, wait upon and worship, in that mansion, the illustrious Lord of all treasures. And, O tiger among kings, the illustrious husband of Uma and lord of created things, the three-eyed Mahadev, the wielder of the trident and the slayer of the Asura called Bhaganetra, the mighty god of the fierce bow, surrounded by multitudes of spirits in their hundreds and thousands, some of dwarfish stature, some of fierce visage, some hunchbacked, some of blood-red eyes, some of frightful yells, some feeding upon fat and flesh, and some terrible to behold, but all armed with various weapons and endued with the speed of wind, with the goddess, Parvati, ever cheerful and knowing no fatigue, always waited here upon their friend Kuvara, the lord of treasures. And hundreds of Gandharv chiefs, with cheerful hearts and attired in their respective robes, and Viswavasu, and Haha and Huhu, and Tamburu and Pavarta, and Selasha, and Chitrasena skilled in music and also Chitraratha, these and innumerable Gandharvs worship the Lord of treasures. And Chakradhaman, the chief of the Vidyadhras, with his followers, waited in that mansion upon the Lord of treasures. And Kinnaras by hundreds and innumerable kings with Bhagdatta as their chief, and Druma, the chief of the Kimpurushas, and Mahendra, the chief of the Rakshasas, and Gandhamdana accompanied by many Yakshas and Gandharvs and many Rakshasas wait upon the Lord of treasures. The virtuous Vibhishma also worshipped there his elder brother the Lord Kuvara, Croesus. The mountains of Himamvat, Paripatra, Vindhya, Kailas, Mandara, Malaya, Durdura, Mahendra, Gandhamdana, Indrakila, Sunava, and eastern and the western hills, these and many other mountains, in their personified forms, with Meru standing before all, wait upon and worship the illustrious Lord of treasures. The illustrious Nandiswars, and Mahakala, and many spirits with arrowy ears and sharp-pointed mouths, Kaksha, Kutimukha, Dante, and Vijaya of great ascetic merit, and the mighty white bull of Shiva roaring deep, all wait in that mansion. Besides these, many other Rakshasas and Pisachas, devils, worship Kuvara in that assembly house. The son of Pulastya, Kuvara, formerly used always to worship in all the modes and sit, with permission obtained, beside the god of gods, Shiva, the creator of the three worlds, that supreme deity surrounded by his attendants. One day the exalted Bhav, Shiva, made friendship with Kuvara. From that time, O king, Mahadev always sitteth on the mansion of his friend, the Lord of treasures. Those best of all jewels, those princes of all gems in the three worlds, viz., Sankha and Padma, in their personified forms, accompanied by all the jewels of the earth, also in their personified forms, worship Kuvara. This delightful assembly house of Kuvara that I have seen, attached to the firmament and capable of moving along it, is such, O king. Listen now to the Sabha I describe unto thee, belonging to Brahma the grandsire. Thus endeth the 10th section in the Lokpala Sabhakyana Parva of the Sabha Parva. Section 11, Lokpala Sabhakyana Parva continued. Narada said, Listen to me, O child, as I tell thee of the assembly use of the grandsire, that house which none can describe, saying it is such. In the Krita, golden, age of old, O king, the exalted deity Aditya, once, came down from heaven into the world of men. Having seen before the assembly house of Brahma the self-created, Aditya was cheerfully wandering over the earth in human form, desirous of beholding what could be seen here. It was on that occasion, O son of Pandu, that the god of day spoke unto me, O bull of the Bharata race, of that celestial Sabha, assembly, of the grandsire, immeasurable and immaterial and indescribable, as regards form and shape, and capable of delighting the heart of every creature by its splendor. Hearing, O bull of the Bharata race, of the merits of that Sabha, I became, O king, desirous of beholding it. I then asked Aditya, saying, O exalted one, I desire to behold the sacred Sabha of the grandsire. O Lord of light, tell me, O exalted one, by what ascetic penances, or by what acts, or by what charms, or by what rites, I may be enabled to behold that excellent sin-cleansing Sabha. Hearing these words of mine, Aditya the god of day, the deity of 1,000 rays, answered me, O chief of the Bharata race, thus, observe thou, with mind wrapped in meditation, the Brahma vow extending for 1,000 years. Repairing then to the breast of the Himamvat, I commenced that great vow, and after I had completed it, the exalted and sinless deity Surya, endued with great energy, and knowing no fatigue, took me with him to the Sabha of the grandsire. O king, it is impossible to describe that Sabha, saying it is such, for within a moment it assumes a different form that language fails to paint. O Bharata, it is impossible to indicate its dimensions or shape. I never saw anything like it before. Ever contributing to the happiness of those within it, its atmosphere is neither cold nor warm. Hunger and thirst or any kind of uneasiness disappear as soon as one goeth thither. It seems to be made up of brilliant gems of many kinds. It doth not seem to be supported on columns, it knoweth no deterioration, being eternal. That self-effulgent mansion, by its numerous blazing, celestial indications of unrivaled splendor, seems to surpass the moon, the sun and the fire in splendor. Stationed in heaven, it blazes forth, censuring as it were the maker of the day. In that mansion, O king, the supreme deity, the grandsire of all created things, having himself created everything by virtue of his creative illusion, stayeth ever. And Daksha, Prachetas, Pulaha, Marichi, the master Kasyapa, Brigu, Atri, and Vasistha and Gautama, and also Angiras, and Pulastya, Kratu, Prahlad, and Kadama, these Prajapatis, and Angiras of the Atharvan Veda, the Valikilyas, the Marichipas, intelligence, space, knowledge, air, heat, water, earth, sound, touch, form, taste, scent, nature, and the modes of nature, and the elemental and prime causes of the world, all stay in that mansion beside the Lord Brahma. And Agastya of great energy, and Markandeya, of great ascetic power, and Jamdagni and Bharadwaja, and Samvarta, and Chavna, and exalted Durvasa, and the virtuous Rishyasringa, the illustrious Sanat Kumara of great ascetic merit and the preceptor in all matters affecting yoga, Asita, and Devala, and Jagishavya acquainted with truth, Rishwa, Ajita Satru, and money of great energy, and the science of healing with its 8 branches, all in their personified forms, O Bharata, the moon with all the stars and the stellar conjunctions, Aditya with all his rays, the winds, the sacrifices, the declarations of purpose in sacrifices, the vital principles, these illustrious and vow-observing beings in their personified forms, and many others too numerous to mention, attend all upon Brahma in that mansion. Wealth and religion and desire, and joy, and aversion, and asceticism and tranquility, all wait together upon the supreme deity in that palace. The 20 tribes of the Gandharvas and Apsaras, as also their 7 other tribes, and all the Lokpalas, chief protectors of several regions, and Sukra, and Vrihaspati, and Vuha, and Angaka, Mandla, Sani, Rahu, and the other planets, the mantras of the Samaveda, the special mantras of the same Veda, the rites of Harimat and Vasumat, the Adityas with Indra, the two Agnis mentioned by name, viz. Agnisoma and Indragani, the Mangyutas, Viswakarman, and the Vasis, O Bharata, the Pitris, and all kinds of sacrificial libations, the four Vedas, viz. Rig, Sama, Yaja, and Athava, all sciences and branches of learning, histories and all minor branches of learning, the several branches of the Vedas, the planets, the sacrifices, the Soma, all the deities, Savitri, Gayatri, the seven kinds of rhyme, understanding, patience, memory, wisdom, intelligence, fame, forgiveness, the hymns of the Samaveda, the science of hymns in general, and various kinds of verses and songs, various commentaries with arguments, all in their personified forms, O king, and various dramas and poems and stories and abridged glosses, these also, and many others wait upon the supreme deity in that Sabha. Kshanas, lavas, muhurtas, day, night, fortnights, months, the 6 seasons, O Bharata, years, yugas, the 4 kinds of days and nights, viz. Appertaining to man, to the Pitris, to the gods, and to Brahma, and that eternal, indestructible, undeteriorating, excellent wheel of time and also the wheel of virtue, these always wait there, O Yudhishthira, and Aditi, Diti, Danu, Sursa, Vinta, Ira, Kalika, Suravi, Devi, Sarama, Goitmi and the goddesses Prada, and Kadru, these mothers of the celestials, and Rudrani. Shri, Lakshmi, Badra, Shashti, the earth, Ganga, Hri, Swaha, Kriti, the goddess Sura, Sachi Pushti, Arundhati, Samvriti, Asa, Niyati, Shrishti, Rati. These and many other goddesses wait upon the creator of all. The Adityas, Vasis, Rudras, Mangyutas, Ashwinas, the Viswadevas, Sadhyas, and the Pitris gifted with the speed of the mind, these all wait there upon the grandsire. And, O bull amongst men, know thou that there are 7 classes of Pitris, of which 4 classes have embodied forms and the remaining 3 without embodied forms. It is well known that the illustrious Virajas and Agniswatas and Gahapatyas, 3 classes of Pitris, range in heaven. And those amongst the Pitris that are called the Somapas, the Ekasiringras, the Chaturvedas, and the Kalas, are ever worshipped amongst the 4 orders of men. Gratified with the Soma, juice, first, these gratify Soma afterwards. All these tribes of Pitris wait upon the Lord of the creation and cheerfully worship the supreme deity of immeasurable energy. And Rakshasas, Pisachas, the Danvas and Guhayakas, Nagas, birds, and various animals, and all mobile and immobile great beings, all worship the grandsire. And Purandara, the chief of the celestials, and Varuna and Kuvara and Yam, and Mahadev accompanied by Uma, always repair thither. And, O King of Kings, Mahasena, Kartikeya, also adorate there the grandsire. Narayana himself, and the celestial rishis, and those rishis called Valkilyas, and all beings born of females and all those not born of females, and whatever else is seen in the 3 worlds both mobile and immobile, were all seen by me there, know O King. And 80,000 rishis with vital seed drawn up, and O Pandu, 50,000 rishis having sons, were all seen by me there. And all the dwellers in heaven repairing thither behold the supreme deity when they please, and worshipping him with a bow of their head return whence they came. And, O King of men, the grandsire of all created beings, the soul of the universe, the self-create Brahma of immeasurable intelligence and glory, equally kind unto all creatures, honoreth as they deserve, and gratifieth with sweet speech and gift of wealth and other enjoyable articles, the gods, the Daityas, the Nagas, the Brahmanas, the Yakshas, the birds, the Kalayas, the Gandharvas, the Apsaras, and all other exalted beings that came to him as his guests. And that delicious Sabha, O child, is always crowded with persons coming and going, filled with every kind of energy, and worshipped by Brahmarshis. That celestial Sabha blazes forth with the graceful possessions of Brahma and looks extremely handsome, O tiger among kings. As this Sabha of yours is unrivaled in the world of men, so is that Sabha of Brahma, seen by me unrivaled in all the worlds. I have seen these Sabhas, O Bharata, in regions of the celestials. This thy Sabha is unquestionably the foremost in the world of men. Thus ended the 11th section in the Lokpala Sabhakyana Parva of the Sabha Parva. Section 12, Lokpala Sabhakyana Parva continued. Yudhishthira said, O thou foremost of eloquent men, as them hast described the different Sabhas unto me, it appeareth that almost all the monarchs of the earth are to be found in the Sabha of Yam. And, O Master, almost all the Nagas, and principal Daityas, and rivers, and oceans, are to be found in the Sabha of Varuna. And so the Yakshas, the Guhayakas, the Rakshasas, the Gandharvas and Apsaras and the deity, Yam, having the bull for his vehicle, are to be found in the Sabha of the Lord of Treasures. Thou hast said that in the Sabha of the Grandsire are to be seen all the great rishis, all the gods, all the branches of learning. As regards the Sabha of Sakra, however, thou hast named, O Muni, all the gods, the Gandharvas, and various rishis. But, O great Muni, thou hast mentioned one and only one king, viz., the royal Rishi Harishchandra as living in the Sabha of the illustrious chief of the gods. What act was performed by that celebrated king, or what ascetic penances with steady vows, in consequence of which he hath been equal to Indra himself? O Brahmana, how didst thou also meet with my father, the exalted Pandu, now a guest in the region of the Pitris? O exalted one of excellent vows, hath he told thee anything? O tell me all, as I am exceedingly curious to hear all this from thee. Narada said, One, O King of Kings, I shall tell thee all that thou askest me about Harishchandra. I shall presently tell thee of his high excellence. He was a powerful king, in fact, an emperor over all the kings of the earth. Indeed, all the kings of the earth obeyed his sway. O monarch, mounted alone upon a victorious car adorned with gold, that king by the prowess of his weapons brought the whole earth with her 7 islands under his sway. And, O monarch, having subjugated the whole earth with her mountains, forests, and woods, he made preparations for a great sacrifice called the Rajasuya. And all the kings of the earth brought at his command wealth unto that sacrifice. All of them consented to become distributors of food and gifts unto the Brahmanas that were fed on the occasion. At that sacrifice King Harishchandra gave away unto all who asked, wealth that was 5 times what each had solicited. At the conclusion of the sacrifice, the king gratified the Brahmanas that came from various countries with large presents of various kinds of wealth. The Brahmanas gratified with various kinds of food and enjoyable articles, given away unto them to the extent of their desires, and with the heaps of jewels distributed amongst them, began to say, King Harishchandra is superior to all kings in energy and renown. And know, O monarch, O bull of the Bharata race, it was for this reason that Harishchandra shone more brightly than thousands of other kings. The powerful Harishchandra, having concluded his great sacrifice, became installed, O king, in the sovereignty of the earth and looked resplendent on his throne. O bull of the Bharata race, all those monarchs that performed the sacrifice of Rajasuya, attaining to the region of Indra, pass their time in felicity in Indra's company. And, O bull of the Bharata race, those kings also that yield up their lives without turning their backs on the field of battle attain to the mansion of Indra and live in joy with him. Those again that yield up their bodies after severe ascetic penances also attain to the same region and shine brightly there for ages. O king of the Kuru race, O son of Kunti, thy father Pandu, beholding the good fortune of Harishchandra and wondering much thereat, hath told thee something. Knowing that I was coming to the world of men, he bowed unto me and said, Thou shouldst tell Yudhishthira, O Rishi, that he can subjugate the whole earth inasmuch as his brothers are all obedient to him. And having done this, let him commence the grand sacrifice called Rajasuya. He is my son. If he performeth that sacrifice, I may, like Harishchandra, soon attain to the region of Indra, and there in his Sabha pass countless years in continuous joy. I told him in reply, O king, I shall tell thy son all this, if I go to the world of men. I have now told thee what he said, O tiger among men. Accomplish then, O son of Pandu, the desires of thy father. If thou performest that sacrifice, thou shalt then be able to go, along with thy deceased ancestors, into the same region that is inhabited by the chief of the immortals. It hath been said, O king, that the performance of this great sacrifice is attended with many obstacles. A class of Rakshasas called Brahma Rakshasas, employed in obstructing all sacrifices, always search for loopholes when this great sacrifice is commenced. On the commencement of such a sacrifice, a war may take place, destroying the Kshatriyas and even furnishing occasion for the destruction of the whole earth. A slight obstacle may involve the whole earth in ruin. Reflecting upon all this, O King of Kings, do what is for thy good. Be thou watchful and ready in protecting the four orders of thy subjects. Grow thou in prosperity and enjoy thou felicity. Gratify thou the Brahmanas with gifts of wealth. I have now answered in detail all that thou hast asked me. With thy leave I will now go to the city Dwaravati of the Dasrahas. Vasampayana said, O Janamejaya, having said this unto the son of Pritha, Narada went away, accompanied by those rishis with whom he had come. And after Narada had gone away, King Yudhishthira, O thou of the Kuru race, began to think, along with his brothers, of that foremost of sacrifices called Rajasuya. Thus ends the 12th section in the Lokpala Sabha Parva of the Sabha Parva. Section 13, Rajasuyaramba Parva. Vasampayana said, Yudhishthira, having heard these words of Narada, began to sigh heavily. And, O Bharata, engaged in his thoughts about the Rajasuya, the king had no peace of mind. Having heard of the glory of the illustrious monarchs of old, and being certain about the acquisition of regions of felicity by performers of sacrifices in consequence of their sacred deeds, and thinking especially of that royal sage Harishchandra who had performed the great sacrifice, King Yudhishthira desired to make preparations for the Rajasuya sacrifice. Then worshipping his counselors and others present at his sabha, and worshipped by them in return, he began to discuss with them about that sacrifice. Having reflected much, that king of kings, that bull amongst the Kurus, inclined his mind towards making preparations for the Rajasuya. That prince of wonderful energy and prowess, however, reflecting upon virtue and righteousness, again set his heart to find out what would be for the good of all his people. For Yudhishthira, that foremost of all virtuous men, always kind unto his subjects, worked for the good of all without making any distinctions. Indeed, shaking off both anger and arrogance, Yudhishthira always said, "Give unto each what is due to each." And the only sounds that he could hear were, "Blessed be Dharma, blessed be Dharma." Yudhishthira, conducting himself thus and giving paternal assurance to everybody, there was none in the kingdom who entertained any hostile feelings towards him. He therefore came to be called a Jatasatru, one with no enemy at all. The king cherished everyone as belonging to his family, and Bhima ruled over all justly. Arjuna, used to employing both his hands with equal skill, protected the people from external enemies. And the wise Sahdeva administered justice impartially. And Nakula behaved towards all with humility that was natural to him. Owing to all this, the kingdom became free from disputes and fear of every kind. And all the people became attentive to their respective occupations. The rain became so abundant as to leave no room for desiring more, and the kingdom grew in prosperity. And in consequence of the virtues of the king, money lenders, the articles required for sacrifices, cattle rearing, tillage, and traders, all and everything grew in prosperity. Indeed, during the reign of Yudhishthira, who was ever devoted to truth, there was no extortion, no stringent realization of arrears of rent, no fear of disease, of fire, or of death by poisoning and incantations, in the kingdom. It was never heard at that time that thieves or cheats or royal favorites ever behaved wrongfully towards the king or towards one another amongst themselves. Kings conquered on the sixth occasion, of war, treaty, etc., were wont to wait upon him in order to do good unto the monarch and worship him ever, while the traders of different classes came to pay him the taxes leviable on their respective occupations. And accordingly during the reign of Yudhishthira, who was ever devoted to virtue, his dominion grew in prosperity. Indeed, the prosperity of the kingdom was increased not by these alone but even by persons wedded to voluptuousness and indulging in all luxuries to their fill. And the king of kings Yudhishthira, whose sway extended over all, was possessed of every accomplishment and bore everything with patience. And, O king, whatever countries the celebrated and illustrious monarch conquered, the people everywhere, from Brahmanas to swains, were all more attached to him than to their own fathers and mothers. Vasampayana said, King Yudhishthira, then, that foremost of speakers, summoning together his counselors and brothers, asked them repeatedly about the Rajasuya sacrifice. Those ministers in a body, thus asked by the wise Yudhishthira desirous of performing the sacrifice, then told him these words of grave import. One already in possession of a kingdom desireth all the attributes of an emperor by means of that sacrifice which aideth a king in acquiring the attributes of Varuna. O Prince of Kuru race, thy friends think that as thou art worthy of the attributes of an emperor, the time is even come for thee for the performance of the Rajasuya sacrifice. The time for the performance of that sacrifice in which rishis of austere vows kindle 6 fires with mantras of the Samaveda, is come for thee in consequence of thy Kshatriya possessions. At the conclusion of the Rajasuya sacrifice, when the performer is installed in the sovereignty of the empire, he is rewarded with the fruits of all sacrifices including the Agnihotra. It is for this that he is called the conqueror of all. Thou art quite able, O strong-armed one, to perform this sacrifice. All of us are obedient to thee. Soon will you be able, O great king, to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. Therefore, O great king, let thy resolution be taken to perform this sacrifice without further discussion. Thus spoke unto the king all his friends and counselors separately and jointly. And, O king, Yudhishthira, that slayer of all enemies, having heard these virtuous, bold, agreeable and weighty words of theirs, accepted them mentally. And having heard those words of his friends and counselors, and knowing his own strength also, the king, O Bharata, repeatedly thought over the matter. After this the intelligent and virtuous Yudhishthira, wise in counsel, again consulted with his brothers, with the illustrious Ritvijas about him, with his ministers and with Dvaimya and Dwaipayana and others. Yudhishthira said, how may this wish that I entertain of performing the excellent sacrifice of Rajasuya that is worthy of an emperor, bear fruit, in consequence of my faith and speech alone? Vasampayana said, O thou of eyes like lotus petals, thus asked by the king, they replied at that time unto Yudhishthira the just in these words, being conversant with the dictates of morality, thou art, O king, worthy to perform the grand sacrifice of Rajasuya. After the Ritvijas and the Rishis had told these words unto the king, his ministers and brothers highly approved of the speech. The king, however, possessed of great wisdom, and with mind under complete control, actuated by the desire of doing good unto the world, again revolved the matter in his mind, thinking of his own strength and means, the circumstances of time and place, and his income and expenditure. For he knew that the wise never come to grief owing to their always acting after full deliberation. Thinking that the sacrifice should not be commenced, pursuant to his own resolution only, Yudhishthira, carefully bearing upon his shoulder the weight of affairs, thought of Krishna, that persecutor of all sinners, as the fittest person to decide the matter, inasmuch as he knew him to be the foremost of all persons, possessed of immeasurable energy, strong-armed, without birth but born amongst men from will alone. Reflecting upon his godlike feats, the son of Pandu concluded that there was nothing that was unknown to him, nothing that he could not achieve, and nothing that he could not bear, and Yudhishthira, the son of Pritha, having come to this settled resolution, soon sent a messenger unto that master of all beings, conveying through him blessings and speeches such as one senior in age might send to one that is younger. And that messenger, riding in a swift car, arrived amongst the Yadvas and approached Krishna, who was then residing in Dwaravati. And Achyuta, Krishna, hearing that the son of Pritha had become desirous of seeing him, desired to see his cousin. And quickly passing over many regions, being drawn by his own swift horses, Krishna arrived at Indraprastha, accompanied by Indrasena. And having arrived at Indraprastha, Janardana approached Yudhishthira without loss of time. And Yudhishthira received Krishna with paternal affection, and Bhima also received him likewise. And Janardana then went with a cheerful heart to his father's sister, Kunti. And worshipped then with reverence by the twins, he began to converse cheerfully with his friend Arjuna, who was overjoyed at seeing him. And after he had rested a while in a pleasant apartment and had been fully refreshed, Yudhishthira approached him at his leisure and informed him all about the Rajasuya sacrifice. Yudhishthira said, I have wished to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. That sacrifice, however, cannot be performed by one's wishing alone to perform it. Thou knowest, O Krishna, everything about the means by which it may be accomplished. He alone can achieve this sacrifice in whom everything is possible, who is worshipped everywhere and who is the King of Kings. My friends and counselors approaching me have said that I should perform that sacrifice. But, O Krishna, in respect of that matter, thy words shall be my guide. Of counselors, some from friendship do not notice the difficulties, others from motives of self-interest say only what is agreeable. Some again regard that is which is beneficial to themselves as worthy of adoption. Men are seen to counsel thus on matters awaiting decision. But thou, O Krishna, art above such motives. Thou hast conquered both desire and anger. It behoveth thee to tell me what is most beneficial to the world. Thus ended the 13th section in the Rajsuramba Parva of the Sabha Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.